right, guys, welcome back to the Command Your Brand Show. I'm your host, Josh Sylvestro, brand ambassador of Command Your Brand, where we help CEOs and founders get on top-rated podcasts. Grab our new book, the best-rated top podcast book in the world, which I like to say, but maybe not true, but I love to say it. Bestpodcastbook.com. Check us out, commandyourbrand.com. All right, so in today's episode, I have a very lovely guest who I kind of fascinate and talk about a lot of different things. We go into different areas of life, and this person loves to help people and just is very passionate about helping others. He's all the way from California, which is I find it's like the very top end people who love to help others, the health industry, the coaches all around the world. So I'd like to introduce you guys to Luis. Luis, thanks for joining the show, man.
Thank you for having me, my friend. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, because I know your name is kind of like Spanish-y. Do you speak Spanish?
Sí, claro, hombre. I'm from Puerto Rico, born on the island, raised in the Bronx, 10 minutes from Yankee Stadium, and I've been in California for like 13 years now.
Wow, that's great. So I guess for people who don't know who you are and kind of want to get to know you a little bit better, could you guys just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided to start your company?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I am someone who was the first in my family to do all the things. First to graduate high school, first to go to college, first to own a passport, and then ultimately the first to start a business. And so I was an accidental entrepreneur. I'm someone that's been recruited to work at top companies like LinkedIn and Google. And at one point, folks started tapping my shoulders and being like, "What did you do? What's the sauce? What are you doing on LinkedIn that's getting your profile ranking in so many views?" And after enough taps of doing that, then I started getting taps on the other shoulder. Was like, dude, how are you managing a business part-time while working full-time? What does that look like? And then when Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, I needed to step away from corporate for a bit and have a more flexible sort of schedule so I could be more available for family through that entire sort of turbulence. And that's when I leaned into the side hustle and made it a full-time thing. And that's where I started to take on bigger contracts, work with bigger businesses, doing bigger things around revenue enablement. And so I have a background in tech sales, and I stepped from selling and being an individual contributor to being a leader, ultimately pivoting into training and coaching and certifying, leaning into operations and how is it that we connect all the dots between operations, marketing, and sales to create really wonderful customer experiences and accelerate revenues. Yeah. And I started taking all that big tech thinking and bringing it to smaller firms who were looking to break through that multiple 6-figure, 7-figure threshold in their own businesses by introducing revenue enablement, not just sales coaching.
Right. That's kind of interesting too, because I think a lot of people, need the help and want the help, but they just don't know what to do. Like from your experiences, I know you probably helped a lot of people with this business and helping their own business grow. What do you find were like the 5 key mistakes that people made in terms of, making them like coaches or making them experts in their area? Like, what did you find that, out of your experience, the 5 reasons, like 5 things that people just couldn't do well and just actually they failed in those because of those things?
Yeah, I think top of the list would be just the mindset. First things first, when I work with folks, when I work with founders and leaders, let's stack the receipts, right? Because if you don't see yourself as a consummate expert, if you can't see your leadership or the level that you've ascended to, I can't help you, right? You're going to carry that insecurity through anything else that we do. That mindset is going to limit you from receiving any other information that I might introduce. Mm-hmm. And so first things first, when I'm working with an expert, it's like, talk to me about your expertise. Like if I were looking at you on a product page on a website, right? What are the stats? How many people have you influenced? How many things have you written? How many stages have you spoken on? Let's tally all those things. And what I find is that when going through that exercise, folks have their revelation of like, oh, I'm actually a lot more capable than I thought I was to step into the work that I'm about to do with you. Then the next thing is, okay, there's that self-realization. Now let's look at like, how is it that you're showing up in the business? Are you the CEO or are you the intern of what you're doing? Meaning, are you taking orders or are you leading strategy? Are you leading with fear and reacting to this concern about leaving revenue on the table or missing out on opportunity? Or are you only saying yes to the things that are strategically aligned in the business? right? And part of like really affirming and holding that strategy is that self-awareness, self-confidence to then realize like your thinking, your strategic thinking is valuable and that you're thinking in the right direction and that it is okay to walk away from opportunities.
Right.
Then we're checking assumptions. Like, what is your assumption about selling, engaging, reaching out to people, networking? Right? The most immediate assumption is, I don't want to be sleazy. I don't want to bother people. I don't want to be that person. Cool. Then don't. Right? Be thoughtful, be innovative, be practical, be relevant in a conversation. You don't need to sell. You just need to introduce the possibility of a transformation that no one else is thinking about.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they'll start to gravitate and lean in and want to learn more. Right. And so that's the other thing is let's check your assumptions. Then let's do a check of your skills. The number one skill that anyone needs to have as a business leader at any level and in any function is the capacity for storytelling and your capacity for using data to tell stories.
Right.
And so let's talk about persuasion. Let's talk about establishing confidence and expertise in a room. Let's talk about controlling a deal. How do you do that? Your capacity to influence the way that people think and visualize their own success with you.
Mm.
And then, the other thing that I'm also exploring is let's look at the systems. Let's look at what's happening in the background. Is the marketing bone connected to the operations bone, connected to the sales bone, right? Yes, I know that you were recommended a tool when you took that program 3 years ago, but is that tool working for you now? Is that process really streamlined? Are you getting the rave reviews from the customers? Are there hiccups in the onboarding, offboarding, upselling, right? Those are the things that I'm also exploring is, let's look at where you are working and operating inefficiently, where you're doing the most by not leveraging the tools or the things in the right way.
Wow. It's very fascinating too, because I noticed that a lot of people don't know what's happening in their business. Like I have CEOs and founders, sometimes they're like, oh yeah, we're doing really well. But then they kind of look at a lot of things that's going on in the business. They're actually not doing well. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, it's just that it's knowing what's going on in your company, but also, you have to have the mindset of, you have to take responsibility for things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's the thing that I always, especially when I'm engaging in coaching, right? Folks are very quick to like, hey, Luis, what should I do? You tell me. What does the data say? Right? Like I'm always going to hold this space for you to be a leader who flexes their own muscles and builds their own capacity for decision making. Right. And that's something that's going to be really important and critical is like, I will always hold the mirror up for someone and say, it's your business to build. It's not me, right? Like I'm also not assuming all the liabilities that come with your business.
Right. And also too, like, there's obviously big businesses, but there's also small businesses too. Like you have people who are like coaches, like they're health coaches or they're, tech coaches or, whatever kind of coach you want to be, and I think because they're all by themselves and they're all most of the time and they obviously run their business from that end.
Yeah.
What do you suggest to people who are running their business by themselves, what they should actually do to actually be successful in running it, be a successful coach in their business?
Gosh, stop trading time for things. The first thing that I would do in working with someone who is a coach, consultant, expert, let's anchor on intellectual property. What is your signature framework, method, or approach for driving someone from state A to state B, or a business, right? Like, how is it that I just laid out a few minutes ago how I approach working with someone. Step 1, mindset shift. Step 2, 3, 4, 5, right? That's a framework. That's a method. That's an approach. And it allows me to very quickly articulate what it is that I do for someone or a business. It also puts me in a position to brainstorm offers that are aligned with that framework. And so, I can, once I've anchored on my intellectual property, I can then create the lead generation engine. I can then create the introductory offer. I can then create the signature experience or the signature thing, right? Coaching packages, programs, online and on-demand sort of content, etc., all centered around this framework, around modules that are tied to that framework being the promise of a transformation.
Right.
And so that's what I would implore anyone who's a coach or a consultant or a solopreneur is like, get yourself out of that trap of negotiating with people. Elevate the way that you're perceived as an expert at what you do by anchoring on a signature framework, method, or approach.
Right. Now, I'm just kind of a curious guy because I'm a big tech nerd, just FYI, and it's great that I'm talking to you because I know the one people that people are afraid of is being replaced. And we're going to the age of AI where like AI is just taking up a lot of different things going on. And what's funny is, I was talking to a coach the other day, and actually a health coach, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to get replaced by AI. Like someone can just look up AI, like some type of AI program, and they're just going to get a list of all these things." Like, how can people be confident and like sure that actually isn't going to happen, or like they're not going to be replaced? 'Cause I think in people's minds, they think they are going to get replaced by machines and automations, but they have a beautiful coach and they have a beautiful program, and they're afraid of getting out there more. Like, what do you think about that?
Let's check the assumption. I think people give way too much power to AI. It's not that smart.
Yeah.
It's not that intelligent, right? I still have to talk to ChatGPT like it's a 5-year-old sometimes to get the things that I needed to output, right? And the industry is constantly shifting, the technology is constantly shifting, and it's all created by humans, and humans are imperfect. So let's just own that we're giving AI way too much credit. There's a lot of development that still needs to happen. And sure, it'll happen on an accelerated timeline or whatever, but let's just check the assumption. Then let's lean into it. I work with a wellness coach. I'm on a health journey right now. And we lean into AI. I have sessions with my coach. I track the things that I eat, my sleep, my intake, all those things using ChatGPT. And while I'm on a session with my coach, I'm pulling data and I'm delivering that to my coach. And I have that human touch that's validating those things that actually the GPT is getting wrong, right? So we're constantly prompting it and correcting it even in session. But we're leveraging it as a tool to enhance the work that we're doing, right? And this coach did not shy away from leaning into the technology to take that cognitive load off of staying on top of all the things, and instead putting the client in that seat of driving their own outcomes. And so it's on me to track, it's on me to do the things. And what they're doing is validating my progress and mindset shifts and the things that I'm doing. And so that's what I would consider is, number one, check your assumption. AI ain't all that smart. And number two, think about how to incorporate it in the ways that you do things to really transform and drive better results. Because here's the thing, it's not going away.
Right.
And I think that the folks that shy away from it are the ones that are going to be left behind, right? I think that particularly there's a generational gap. I see that older generations are shying away from learning how to prompt engineer and such. And so they're going to be left out. And all I know is that I will never be in that position as a business owner. Like, you ain't going to leave me out. I'm going to get this bag no matter what. And I'm going to adopt and change.
Yeah.
And I think that also there's an opportunity to think about how can I even use AI to introduce product. I'm seeing folks starting to take their frameworks, playbooks, the interviews, intellectual property, and all of that to train these models to then allow themselves to serve more people without being present. How awesome would it be if you couldn't afford $3, $5, $20,000 to pick your favorite person's brain, but you could ask the same questions to a GPT and get the same answer?
Right. Interesting. It's very fascinating to me. I find technology that, you're right. It's actually evolving a lot, and it's actually really making a lot of people differences in their businesses and how they operate, and they're getting things done faster. Like for me, as like, the host of this podcast and other things, like we use ChatGPT to help us in our work that we are actually trying to do, so I find it very interesting. It should be a tool to help you grow. You know what I mean? So you shouldn't be afraid of something because it's just, we think what's going to be, we're looking at the next Terminator movie or something. You know what I mean? So I think it's a good point that you mentioned.
Yeah. I think those images are going to be present in our minds for a while to come. But what's interesting is, like, whenever I hear people with their fears of AI and being replaced, I also hear people's cringe when they see things that are AI generated and it's obvious and it's, it really intended to be scammy or pushy. So I just want to give credit to the human instinct and intuition of, trusting what's real.
Yeah, cool. And then in terms of the coaches, I'm kind of curious because I know a lot of business owners, I found for me, they like want to do more consulting and they want to work one on one with people. How do people actually get started with that? Just out of curiosity, because, I know a lot of people like, that I know who are clients of ours who just want to be a coaches more rather than just a whole business orientation type person. How do you actually do that? How do you actually start being a coach?
Yeah. So going back to the point that I brought up earlier, so you anchor yourself on like a signature framework. I have this coaching program for taking you from not knowing this to totally transform, or not having this capacity to totally killing it, right?
Yeah.
And then you can slice and dice that in a couple of ways. If you want to step into coaching, then you've got to give people the tools and the frameworks to work with. So you can think about packaging all that intellectual property into worksheets, on-demand modules and things like that where people can self-pace. And then you're stepping into coaching them to progress through those exercises, progress through those modules, or through those levels of building or acquiring whatever it is that you're promising. And just think about then also some boundaries around that. I think that folks that are stepping into coaching early on have this tendency to bleed out and do the most. I want to over deliver. I want to give more than I promised. I want to prove myself. I've got to earn this, right? And there's a mindset shift that needs to happen, because people will take advantage of you if you don't have firm boundaries. If you have 60-minute sessions that turn into hour and a half, they're always going to show up wanting more than an hour from you, and you'll never be able to establish that boundary when you really need to hop off the call. And so that's going to be really important for you is, stepping into coaching is being very clear about your role. It is not my job to teach you. It is not my job to tell you what to do. It is my job to coach you to develop the discipline around decision-making, discernment, performance, etc. And so that's also going to be very important is if you're stepping into coaching, be very clear about your role in that business or person's transformation.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, I'm just, I'm always fascinated by some certain businesses, right?
Yeah.
Do you find, is it easier today to be a coach than it was 10 to 15 years ago?
Absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
that has everything to do with the market being primed. People now know what coaching is. It's now part of like standard conversation at a dinner table. Oh, I've got a fitness coach. I've got a wellness coach. I've got a life coach. Oh, I just saw this coach on TikTok. I just watched this reel about this coach, right? So
Yeah.
we're out here. The industry is booming, multi-billion-dollar industry. This force isn't going anywhere. I think what's happening now is there's greater discernment around customers around like, okay, who's like a legit coach, right? Whether they're certified to do what they do or whether they've had experience doing what they're doing. That's the question that consumers have, right? Or buyers or, business leaders. And for you as a coach is getting out of your head about, oh, I haven't had 50,000 hours of coaching or whatever. And again, focusing on your capacity to drive someone through a method for transformation.
Hmm. What do you find, just out of curiosity from your experience, what do you find was the hardest type of coach to actually grow and start? If there is one.
Gosh, anyone in the vein of healing,
Mm,
I find, whether they are a wellness practitioner, spiritual healer, life coach, right? There is this inclination to show up to do this work because folks are called to do it. There's a real desire to make an impact, to make a change, to leave the world better than you found it. And what I find is that those sort of altruistic intentions to help people are at odds with capitalism or revenue generation. It's like,
yeah.
I feel weird charging for this. I want to, do a sliding scale for this, etc. And yet you have examples of people who are, wellness and healers and things like that, practitioners who are killing it
Yeah.
because they can distinguish, this is a business from this is, my volunteer work or my passion. And they step into, also experiences around being burnt out and being taken advantage of for being so giving and so generous with their energy and time.
Yeah.
And so those sort of practitioners, I give them the advice, but they ultimately go out, get burned, and then come back and say, you were right.
Yeah. Interesting. And so for people who are new as coaches, maybe they don't know this and maybe that's something you would like to share. What would you say would be a good mindset for new coaches or even just coaches who are trying to uh, embrace new ideas on being a coach? Like what are some like really good mindsets for people so they don't get taken advantage of as a coach, but also really run their business to the next level?
Gosh, people want what they can't have. So making yourself scarce will actually encourage people to take you more seriously.
Hmm.
Bringing up the example I brought up earlier, right? They'll take you seriously if they know this is a 60-minute session. I know my coach will clock out as soon as the clock hits 60. So I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to ask the questions. I'm going to come with notes. I'm going to come prepared, right? Very different mindset than like, oh, this coach lets me have my way. So I kind of want to talk about this today, but then I kind of want to talk about that, but then I kind of want to talk about that. So then the session gets derailed because the person isn't prepared. The other sort of mindset shift that we need to come across is that people will not show up if it doesn't hurt them somehow. And so you can't give your coaching away for free. You can't be generous. You can't lowball yourself on pricing because then people won't take the transformation seriously.
Right.
There is a difference in mindset and output and quality when someone is paying you $100 for that hour session versus investing $10,000 with you for a coaching package. This is hurting me. $10,000 is serious. And so I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to read everything you put in front of me. I'm going to show up with greater intent to milk and get every dollar's worth out of this.
Yeah, that's very true. And I find that's so important because, like, if you don't have that mindset, I just find that's not a successful point in being a coach. I think it's really good. What do you think is with coaches, what do you find is the thing they should really study or learn when they're being a coach? Like what they should do to actually be a proper coach? Like I know sometimes there are people in the world that have one mindset of like, this is the way it is. And they're kind of like not the right ones. And there's ones that are really the right ones. And it kind of needs to go all across the board. Like what do you find is like the right coach?
I think that anyone that's listening to me right now probably is expecting me to rattle off like a list of books, trainings, and things like that to invest yourself in. Great. I'm not going to dismiss any of that. Study the greats, study the legends, learn the things. I think that any coach that really arrives at their power and their like real confidence in coaching is someone that's actually held the mirror up to themselves. And so I encourage coaches to transcribe your calls, record them, get your AI note taker, whatever you want, get it in there, transcribe your calls and rewatch your calls, rewatch your coaching, analyze the transcripts, run it through a GPT, right? Tell the GPT how you want to be scored and the things that you want to stand out for and the ways that you want to improve, right? That is how I would think about that opportunity is, if you really want to be an impactful coach, you've got to catch the spinach between your own teeth, because other people aren't going to give you that same feedback. Reading the books, doing the programs, going to that seminar, listening to that guru on YouTube for the 5th time isn't going to change the way that you show up until you see yourself showing up. And then you realize, oh, there's a disconnect between what's actually happening in session with the client and what I think is happening.
Interesting. That's very wild to me, just what people think and how they operate. Like sometimes I even find that they operate differently than the way they think. And it's kind of like they're actually not sort of there in a way.
Yeah.
Like that's why it's kind of like, when picking a coach, it's sort of like, okay, is this the right coach for me? Is this not the right coach for me? It's like, I think that's a determining factor in what their goals are and how they're going to help me in terms of my own personal gains or goals,
Yeah, I think for me, a coach is someone that should be pushing me to develop my capacity to do things for myself after I'm done working with them, right? If I'm hiring a fitness coach and we're hitting the gym together, I should not depend on you for the rest of my life. I should be able to join, a gym and show up at the gym without you and know exactly how to use the equipment, exactly how to work the different muscle groups and how to lay out a schedule and all those things. That is what you should be doing. And then I pull you in when I'm ready to hit new goals, right? If I want to just strengthen up, I work with you for some time. When I'm ready to bulk up, I bring you back in. Then you show me new things, new equipment, new things, right? That is the role of a coach. When I sit across from a business owner, I am not trying to make you dependent on me for making every business decision or every revenue sort of campaign or anything like that. I'm trying to develop your capacity and your confidence for making those decisions on your own, reminding you to lean into the data, reminding you to speak that truth, reminding you to run the models, etc., right? And then also holding up the mirror to the narratives that are holding you back from showing up that way. Hey, Josh, you told me you want this, but I'm also hearing that you're not doing this, not trying this, shying away from that. This feels like it's the ick holding you back from where you want to get, right? That's my role. Not like, hey, Josh, do this now. You have homework now. Let's do this now. I want to check in now.
Yeah.
That's not coaching.
Right. Awesome. Well, I think that's really amazing what you're telling me, because I think that's so important for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people want to do the things, but I think a lot of people are scared to do it, or they're just, they don't know what to do. And I think they need someone like yourself to actually help with figuring out what to actually do. Not like hand holding, but like just to point them to the right direction,
Yeah. Yeah. Some people just need that validation, affirmation of like, I'm pulling the right levers, I'm taking the right steps, I'm on the right path. And just having that assurance can be radically transforming for someone.
Awesome. Yeah. So I would love to also hear about your some successes you've had with people. So obviously you've had clients, you've had people that were just, amazing. I'm sure you would love to share one or two of those stories about people you've helped as coaches or, anything like that.
Yeah, gosh, I'm trying to pull from the vault here. The story that stands out for me is actually my very first client. This is someone that started her life coaching journey, finished her certification, reached out to me, said, I'm ready to do the thing. I want to build the website. I have this vision for myself of speaking on a TED stage, of publishing a book, of leading workshops and groups. I want to take corporate contracts. I want to do this, that. Like she just had this vision and this dream. And so walking through it, we had to go through that again, transformation of like, you're a life coach. You've got this intention for transforming lives and doing this work. We need boundaries. The sessions are 60 minutes. You're doing the most. You're giving them the most. You're holding them back from driving transformation. We need to price appropriately. Your price is too low. You're being bulldozed. They're not taking you seriously. You're not getting the results, right? Let's anchor ourselves on a framework. You're showing up with each session, just letting them drive the conversation. You're the expert. What's current state, what's future state, and what are the steps to get there. And so we worked together. We did all the marketing things, worked through the framework, established the intellectual property for her business, established the back end system so that she could be less concerned about, this bone connected to the email bone connected to the, Google Analytics or whatever else. And she was free to just show up and step into rooms, shake the hands, do the walk, do the talk, really stand in her own expertise and let the back end systems do their thing. We have to date, checked off the majority of the things on her list. She has spoken on a TED stage. She has published the book and recorded the audiobook and also published a second supplemental book to that first one and is now working on a third. And I'm just so thankful for being included in her journey. Shout out to Coach Shanita. She is someone that does brilliant work. She showed up and with all the courage to do what needed to be done, but also really validated for me my capacity to drive someone to that place, to go through that transformation in their mindset, in their revenues, in their business, and the kind of impact that they make. And I reflect on that relationship often when I, inevitably have those moments of like, oh, am I doing the right thing? Am I going down the right path? Am I, good enough of a coach to really drive this for someone? Yes, I am, because the results and the receipts are all there.
Wow, that is an intense story. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love that. All right, cool. Well, we're coming close to the end of our episode here. So before we go, I would love for people to connect with you and kind of get to know you better and maybe have a call with you or any other thing that you have. So is there a place that people can reach out to you or get to know you better? Like any place that would be really, really good for that?
Yeah, come hang out with me. I'm at luisbaez.com. And you can check out, I've got resources, interviews, all the things to get your head right, all the templates and things to score quick wins. I'm pretty generous with the things that I do because I love to see people win.
Yeah. That's great, man. Awesome. Well, Luis, thank you so much for joining the show. I really appreciate the time you've given us, this busy guy like yourself, helping coaches and helping people around the world. I really appreciate the time you've given us, for, however long we did. I believe it's 30 minutes. So I really appreciate the time you've given. And, obviously people who are listening, thank you for joining the show. If you guys like this, please like and subscribe to this. And then definitely check out Luis and his website. And I think it'll be awesome. And Luis, thank you so much for joining the show, man.
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate you, my friend.